So in this video, I'm going to be discussing how to decide when to make an optimization, such as removing a time frame from your ad showing or removing a keyword or such based on the data that you've received. So I get other freelancers that do Google ads occasionally to audit some of my ads just to see if there's anything that I may have missed because everybody has a different opinion on how ads should be run. And so something I ran into was an issue that actually a couple of the freelancers that I had looking at an account were making. And one of those things was over playing their hand when it came to essentially removing a time frame inside a Google Ads account. And so I'll kind of show you what I mean by that. So one thing that we want to look at right off the bat is I typically like to look at the last like 30 days or so when we are trying to establish trends and find enough data in order to make decisions. And then from there, we're going to go, and since the main conversion here that we're worried about is purchases, we're going to go and look at what our typical conversion rate is to kind of try to figure out if we have enough data. So for example, our conversion rate here, to make the math easy, is around 5%. So that means for every 20 clicks, we would expect about one conversion. One thing that was being said to me is like, hey, you need to cut out 4 a.m. to 5 a.m. because it has 0 conversions. However, what you need to be worried about actually is it statistically relevant? Has that time slot had enough time in order to get the in order to get a conversion based on the average data for that campaign. So make sure you're obviously looking at one campaign because a PMAX may have a different performance than a search campaign than a shopping campaign might. So always make sure to dive down specifically to the campaign. Sometimes if you are running enough budget, you may even want to dive down specifically into the ad group if you have segmented your ads well. But that's another story for another video. So essentially what we're looking at here is we would expect after about 20 clicks to get one conversion. However, there's no guarantee that that's going to happen, and you need to essentially give some time for the campaigns to get enough data for you to be like, hey, that actually is a trend in the wrong direction. So I typically like to say if we're not seeing one conversion in 2 or 3x the number of clicks that we would expect to see a conversion, then at that point, I would say, yes, we have enough data here to say that our campaign is not performing super well during this specific time slot. So for example, here, you'd expect to see one conversion after 20 clicks. We've only had about 27 clicks. Not about, we have had 27 clicks. And so what that kind of says to me is like, hey, we need to give it until it gets at least 40 clicks in any given time frame. Or what we need to do is we need to go back out and we need to actually look at the past 60 days and see if there's more data for us to actually make a good decision on that. So we're going to go find the 4 a.m. to 5 a.m. slot. And so look what we have here. We've gotten 46 clicks and we've actually gotten 0 conversions still. So that leads me to believe, hey, this is actually a time that we do need to exclude because it's had essentially 2 times to get a conversion and has run through that 20 clicks 2 times and still has not been able to pull out a conversion. So at that point, I'd be like, okay, we can actually make a schedule around that hour and exclude that hour from showing. Here's another different example showing the breakdown by states for this account and how we decide whether or not a state should be excluded or not based on its overall performance. So one thing to note is we still got our typical conversion rate around 5%. And so that means we're still looking for something with 40 plus clicks to exclude. So for example, this Massachusetts, we could basically say, hey, it should have already gotten us a conversion by now. It's got standard results for pretty much all the other stats. So cost per click, click-through rate's close enough, but conversion rate is just not there. So we can go back out and we can look at the last 60 days just to make sure. Go down to Massachusetts. Yep. So we can actually see, hey, we've gotten one conversion here. cost per conversion, not super great, but this is why we go back out and we look at the overall picture, because this actually may be a state that's we're not really ready to exclude just yet. Yes, the cost per conversion is not where we want it to be, but also it's only expected to have gotten 3 conversions so far in an ideal scenario. So the fact that it's even got some traction is actually a good sign. We can actually come down and look at some of the other states that may not have had the same level of traction. So, for example, this South Carolina one and this Virginia one, they both would have expected to have at least gotten a conversion at this point. Those are ones that I'm more comfortable to exclude. And that's another reason why I sometimes like to wait for like 3x the number of clicks, because that's what you can kind of see in this Massachusetts example, is that it actually took 3x clicks to eventually finally get that conversion. And that's really not super statistically relevant. One conversion does not necessarily mean that this state is doing bad. It just means it probably hasn't gotten a ton of money spent on it for it to actually end up with a conversion. And actually, as you can see, the amount of money we've spent, we'd actually only expect about 2 conversions. So the fact that it's only one off, we could get lucky with one more click and get to that next conversion. So we're not necessarily worried about its performance per se. Just yet, we're more looking to exclude the very obvious things, because that's one thing that you want to kind of leave up to Google. Is Google's algorithm is typically, its goal is to keep you on the platform. It wants you to spend as much money as possible, and the way it does that is by getting you conversions, as long as you're feeding it good data, which I have other videos talking about that. So that's why in more dire scenarios, just waiting 2x to exclude stuff is fine. But if your campaigns can take a little bit more patience, if you can wait back a little bit, waiting for like 3x the number of clicks to see if you should have gotten a conversion or not, is typically a better way to do things. So this one, like Virginia, I would obviously exclude. 70 clicks, we would have expected a conversion by now. And so that's kind of how I go about making my decision process when deciding whether to exclude things or not. I like to make sure that the decision is relatively obvious, because especially as you scale accounts, you don't want to remove an opportunity for growth that would have otherwise been there had you not made that change too early. So Google Ads can often be a game of patience, and sometimes that's the best thing you can do, is just wait. So hope this video helps. If you had any questions or you want me to take a look at your account, feel free to reach out. I got lots of nice resources down in the description below, but hope to see you in the next video.